Hello, everybody, and welcome, one and all, to the Jerick Show, the only cybersecurity show that is more secure than a supervillain's lair. We know that the topic of cybersecurity can be confusing, so let us unravel it like solving a Rubik's cube behind your back. I'm really making a hash out of this one. Speaking of hashes, how you doing, Eric?
I'm doing pretty good, but you completely skipped our intro video.
Welcome to The Jerick Show, featuring your hosts, Javad Malik and Eric Crone. Timely topics, poorly presented.
Now that's better,
You
right?
happy now?
We're there. We're feeling better about things. We're moving along. So thank you for doing that, Javad. I know, we've missed a couple of weeks here again, and we cannot make a habit of that, my friend.
No, especially throughout August.
Yep. So speaking of August, it's going to be Hacker Summer Camp here in the U.S. B-Sides, Black Hat, and DEF CON, along with Diana Initiative and like all the other ones that are happening that same week. It's just a crazy week of overlapping stuff. I know, unfortunately, you're not going to be out for that, but our colleague and friend James and I are both alternate speakers for B-Sides Las Vegas, which I'm very happy about.
Always a bridegroom, never the bridesmaid, never. You know what I mean.
How about not being clever today? Let's. Nice try, though. I'll give you effort.
If you live in Louisiana,
yeah,
and you hold a driving license, then it's been exposed. It's the Russia-linked group claims responsibility, which targets MoveIt software, also used by the BBC and the British Airways. So,
yeah, I mean, this is yet another one of these sorts of things where, I mean, it's been kind of out of control, and I'm just double checking, but mostly what we're seeing from this, as far as the MoveIt vulnerability, is the group Clop. And Clop's done a very interesting thing. They've taken ransomware and skipped the whole encryption piece, just stolen a bunch of data, and then they're using that to leverage against people. But this story is big. I mean, this is an entire state worth of very sensitive information. You know, we have our tax IDs over here, the social security numbers. Boom. 4.5 million people. And this is going to include not only adults, but also younger people, minors that have driving licenses. And this is IDs. This is basically anyone that's got an ID from Louisiana. Their very sensitive information is out there again.
And interesting thing, you said that, what they're doing with ransomware is that they're skipping the encryption part altogether. And I think this is where we need to remind people that ransomware is just a symptom. The actual underlying thing is that someone's compromised your network. They're in there. So then they can do whatever they want. Ransomware is just one of many, many things they can choose to do. So if you only focus on ransomware and only focus on do we have backups in place to restore it, or do we have our negotiation teams in place, then, you're going to be left short when they decide to choose a different payload as opposed to the encryption side of things. So I think companies need to really, really focus on okay, how do we stop getting owned in the first place? How do we prevent that initial access vector? So, look after your credentials, patch your software, all this kind of stuff, the fundamental stuff upon which a lot of security is built on. That's what these people exploit to get into your systems. If you can stop that, then all of this goes away.
Yeah. You know what? I said something very similar to that when I was on CNN, my little clip on there. It was a little bit out of context with the story, but we were talking about this. I was talking about it with the reporter, and we were saying if you can get the human aspect under control, we would see a lot less stories like this going on. And the problem that we have here is we hear about this happening. We hear about this ransomware. We hear about these tools, but what, 7, 8 out of 10 times the initial attack vector is going to be email. And in groups like Clop, they're an affiliate, like a ransomware as a service type of group. And so they've got people that they're profit sharing with that are carrying out these attacks. They're, and they're using phishing a lot of ways. And there's some sneaky ways. I just saw another one yesterday where these bad actors, I think it was a North Korean group, one of the APTs out there. They're sending out emails and it's got a document that says it's encrypted, and it is encrypted. And then they have a password file that they're sending with it. It's a CHM, which is a compiled HTML help file for Windows. So it's a native file format. The people double click that. Well, it's compiled HTML. So they infect the system. They get the password still for this document and put it in, and it unlocks it or whatever. But you're still playing around with these files that you really shouldn't be launching stuff like that. If somebody sends you a document that's password protected, a couple things usually happen here. Number one, it's password protected or, in a zip file or something like that, so that your antivirus software can't open find the virus that's in there. I mean, that's a big red flag to begin with. And then these ones here where they're getting you to open an HTML file, and so that's how they're starting their stuff. But you're right. There's remote access Trojans. There's all kinds of other stuff, banking Trojans, things like that are flying around. It's not just ransomware. There's a lot of other stuff.
So speaking of other stuff, 0 days in Apple software say it's not true. This doesn't happen. Apple doesn't get 0 days or viruses or anything like that, does it?
Yes, it does. Do you remember back in the day when people were like, I don't need antivirus, so I'm running a Mac, and everyone's like, yeah, haha, I don't have to have that, you Windows running idiots. And now, lo and behold, it's just as bad over on that OS, maybe even worse in some cases I've read. But yeah, this is a 0 day. Wanted to bring this up. So if you get hey, it's time to patch, go ahead and apply that. I know it's a pain. Your phone has to reboot. You can't get to the social media for, maybe 5 or 10 minutes. I mean, how awkward is that? You may miss something huge.
Yeah.
But no, this is not only is it a 0 day, but it's an actively exploited 0 day. So don't mess around with this one, folks. That's my lesson here.
So the advice is just patch. Excellent. So FTC accuses DNA testing company of lying about dumping samples. How would you feel if someone lied about dumping your DNA sample?
I mean, so where are they dumping these samples exactly? Are they like flushing it? Are they, tossing it out the window on the way to work?
I don't know.
What does this mean?
Anyway, there's this company called OneHealth.io, also known as Vitagene. And it said that it would dispose of their physical DNA sample as well as their collected health data, but they didn't. And on top of it, I think what they did is they retroactively changed their privacy policy and didn't inform people about it. So they've been fined by the FTC, I think something to the tune of $75,000, and a promise from the company to police its data protection claims.
They have to pinky swear.
Yeah, that's it.
That from now on, they're not going to do absolutely stupid things.
No.
This the whole I don't know, this whole DNA thing and this information goes everywhere. It's like I'm in a tinfoil hat here a little bit, but we start playing around with DNA stuff. I'm always a little bit on edge. You got your ancestry.com, and how many times now have we heard of somebody being arrested? Not always a bad thing, but being arrested because they matched DNA based on a relative who did something in one of these things and then figured it out. It was someone else related to it. I'm like, oh man, it's not just to tell you who your ancestors are, folks. It's a great way for, again, tinfoil hat, governments to gather DNA data. But anytime you're messing around with this stuff, you really need to be doing what you say you're doing with it. There's no reason to keep that around and store it. I mean, it may just be a cheek swab, but why would you want to keep that?
True. Unless you're like Dexter and you like to keep like those blood
Yeah.
slides, of like blood drops of all your victims, and
It just seems like it would be easier to destroy it, whether it's to, incinerate it or something like that,
yeah,
than to
yeah.
actually deal with keeping it around for some reason.
Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah.
So back to Klopp and the Move It attackers. The U.S. Department of State had offered a $10 million reward for information leaking to members of a Klopp affiliate responsible for a recent data extortion campaign to a foreign government.
Nice. This ties into what I was talking about the other day, and some of the comment ops that we've done for the media and some of the stuff that's been published out there. And I said, you know what? These guys are brazen. If they're going to be running out here hitting federal stuff, they're brazen because they're going to have a target on their back. And you generally don't want to mess with governments like this, whether it's a UK government, the US government. I mean, we got Interpol, we got all these people. And when you get on their radar, I mean, what do we see? The dark side. And, we've seen several other ones end up burning down because they screwed around and they pushed it past that line where we actually end up doing like a pretty significant response. And I think that's what we're seeing here. They got a little cocky, and it'll be interesting.
Do you think 10 million is sufficient enough to get people to turn, or should they sweeten the pot and say 10 million US citizenship and all previous crimes forgiven?
Oh, there you go. Well, and that's an interesting question though, because I mean, 10 million is a lot of money when we look at it. But in the past 2 years, Klopp has brought in 91 million. So if you're sitting there, and that's what we know of. So if you're sitting there and you're making that kind of money already, is it worth it to you in the long run to take the risks of ratting out something like this that maybe, a Russian sponsored group? I heard the Russians have this thing about windows and people accidentally falling out of them and stuff like that. If you make them mad, right? Like, is that worth the risk? You better spend it quick.
There is that.
There's
but
windows
you're right.
all around.
I think even putting those threats aside or accidents aside, it's also like really weird. Like, is it enough to entice people? So if, like you said, it's a bit like when someone's a CISO of a large global organization, they're making whatever 6 figures a year. And some vendor comes like, if you have a one-on-one with us, we'll give you a $20 Amazon voucher or something. It's like, do CISOs actually fall for that? Do they actually say yes to that? Actually, if you're a CISO and you said yes to meet with a vendor in exchange for a very low sum, let us know. We'd like to hear how it made you feel. How many times did you shower afterwards to get that stench off you, or anything like that? But genuine question.
But they've got those CISO events too that they end up wining and dining them, bringing them out to some really nice hotel and spending the weekend with them in exchange for their time. I've spoken at events like that, right? Where all of that happens, and you kind of wonder like, what's your time worth? But that's given them some pretty cool stuff. A lot of them bring along their spouses or whatever, and they go, "Hey, honey, check it out. We're gonna have a fun weekend," and they're able to entice them with something like that. But like an Amazon gift card, that's a hard sell.
I think the event is slightly different generally because you're getting something of value out of it, but there's also other CISOs there who you can network with or catch up with or what have you. So it's not just, I'm talking about the very specific, just take a call with one of our sales engineers and we'll send you some socks or what have you. It's just a very, very strange model. And I'm just thinking, is 10 million enough to entice criminals who are making maybe, that much a year anyway to turn?
And why would you do that? There'd almost have to be another reason for somebody to do that. I mean, it's like spycraft and stuff too. You generally either have to have a reason to get somebody to do it, or you have to have something to hold over them, right? If you're going to turn somebody, you're either going to have to make it extremely lucrative, or you're going to have something that is going to threaten whatever it is they're protecting. So and you know what? Oh, go ahead.
What reason do I have to keep you on this show?
My brilliance.
Not good enough. Not good enough. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this week. We'll hopefully be back next week. Until then, stay secure. Oh yes, change the headings while you can. The man in the background on the green room who can't do anything now is just clicking buttons in the hope that he can put something there. Oh well, that's a bitter old Eric for you. So stay secure.